Before we start the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain why. First of all, it's free, so you can get it anywhere, anytime, costs no money. Second of all, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, whatever device you choose. As well as that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast too with no minimum listenership. That means a nobody podcast like mine can make money off of sponsorships. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So if you haven't tried Anchor or you want to start a podcast and haven't tried it yet, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started. Hey guys, just before we begin, I just wanted to let you guys know this is probably going to be a much shorter episode than it usually is. There really isn't much to talk about this week, but I figured I would grace you guys with an episode if you needed some content for your work week or something like that. There was a little bit of MMA this week with Cage Fury FC going on in one, but I'm not going to talk about one because there wasn't really much of anything to note that happened there. And Cage Fury FC, I mean, I watched it, and I'll talk about it in the podcast, but there wasn't really much MMA to talk about this week. More so just little stories here and there, and an update on what's going on in my life and where the podcast is possibly going to go or what I'm hopefully going to do with it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the episode, and I hope you guys have an amazing work week, and stay safe, and the weekend will be here before you know it. See you guys.
You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Today is going to be a rather short episode, as I said in the beginning, because there wasn't really much that happened this week, but I felt like I'd give you guys some content for the work week, and plus, there was something that happened with Joshua, Fabia, and Diego that I kind of wanted to get into, and also there's this little Russian man that looks like a child that's been absolutely blowing up MMA Twitter, so we want to get into that too. Plus a little bit of an update on what's going on with my life and my moving situation and everything, so we'll get into all of that, but to first start things off, I guess, let's start off with the light one, the little Russian man. So there's this guy who's around 18, 19 years old. He's from, I believe, I want to say Chechnya? Maybe not, maybe somewhere in those Russian regions. And his name is Hasbulla. Okay, so this guy, he showed up probably a couple weeks ago, right? I'd say like almost a month ago, he showed up on Twitter because his videos were going viral. It started off as him doing absolutely outrageous things, dressed as a child, and people legitimately thought that this man, this grown-ass man who's got, I don't know, some sort of dwarfism or something, they thought he was a child, like some 4-year-old child, 5-year-old child. This Hasbulla person is 18, 19 years old, and is a very popular influencer over in those regions, apparently. He's got an Instagram which goes by the handle Hasbulla_17, so HASBULLA_17. And there's just all sorts of memes and just all sorts of skits and, bits that he does with this guy that's always with him. I want to say is like his caretaker or his brother or something like that, who always looks like he's carrying around a baby, and it's absolutely comical. I love it. But he's been just blowing up MMA Twitter recently. There's been so many people sharing memes of Hasbulla and just making jokes about Hasbulla, about how he looks like a child and everything along those lines. And more recently, there was another foreign, I don't know if this other person's Russian, but there was another foreign man-child looking person who's around like 18 years old, and yet again, like Hasbulla looks like a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, looks like an infant, looks like a toddler or something like that. And recently they did a mock promo where the two were kind of arguing back and forth, bickering back and forth, saying they're gonna kick each other's asses. One was going at the other. Hasbulla said some funny ass shit about how, because I guess the other one, Abdu, said something about him not having any money and him being broke, and so Hasbulla said, you want to talk about money, you want to talk about broke, you see this credit card, I could buy you and your whole family with it, or something like that, some stupid shit like that, and it went viral. And yeah, it was just this big comical thing where they squared them up and made it look like an actual fight promo. And now, because of that, MMA Twitter, and I guess the rest of Twitter that follows Hasbulla and the rest of Instagram that follows Hasbulla, has been making memes about a potential fight between the two and how comical that would be. And I just have to say, first of all, it's just incredible how somebody from a completely different area of the world, where almost like 90% of MMA Twitter can't understand, still absolutely adores this person, no matter how outrageously obnoxious they can be, because of how funny they are. But second of all, the fact that a mock promotion thing just, I guess, spawned the conversation of an actual fight between the two. And I guess to leave it at that for this topic, because it was just a short little topic I wanted to cover, I could imagine who or what would sanction that fight, and how would that go? We haven't seen any training footage from either little guy. I would love to see. I would absolutely love to see Hasbulla doing boxing, or even Abdu doing boxing or something like that. But yeah, we haven't seen any training from either guy, except for, I think, like a little bit of a skit of Hasbulla trying to take down the guy he's always with or something like that with a single leg. Some stupid shit like that. But anyway, yeah, that's who Hasbulla is. He's pretty goddamn funny, I would say. So if you want to go check out his actual stuff on Instagram, go check out his Instagram at HASBULLA _17. That's Hasbulla 17. Absolutely funny man child. Makes me laugh, just absolutely outrageous. And honestly, to just end things off, I would absolutely love to see, just like the rest of MMA Twitter, I would love to see a fight between the two. Even if it's like a staged fight, I would just love to see the two square off. It'd be fucking hilarious. But anyway, that's it for the Hasbulla topic. We get on to the next topic. Okay, so the last couple podcasts I've talked about this topic, but this topic has absolutely exploded into something just ridiculous. Okay, so last two podcasts I've talked about a man known as, a man who is probably the least self-aware person ever, who's also the head coach of the School of Self-Awareness, Joshua Fabia. I've talked about him for the last couple podcasts. Everybody knows my distaste for him. If you haven't listened to those last three podcasts, whatever, my distaste for him is immeasurable. The guy is an absolute con artist, could very well be mentally ill and delusional, is just an absolute mental abuser, manipulator. He's just an all-around bad guy. I've always gotten very bad vibes from him. So to say that I don't like Joshua Fabia is a very big understatement. But anyway, so the last couple podcasts we've talked about the whole situation with Diego, where there was that issue at Fight Island where Joshua Fabia made a huge issue about them not, kind of portraying him in the best light, I guess, or accusing them of not portraying him in the best light. And then there was that issue coming up to his most recent supposed fight against Donald Cerrone that fell through, where Fabia wanted his medical records for no fucking reason other than, oh, well, I just want to help him out later down in the line, even though he was asked, like, the way he was asking for medical records kind of indicated there was something already wrong. But anyway, and then leading up to most recently, Diego getting ripped from the UFC, and then more recently him ditching Joshua Fabia and firing him from his team, which was a great play by Diego, and I hope this is a whole new beginning for Diego. Maybe he gets back into the UFC, gets one more fight, like farewell fight. Maybe the Cerrone fight happens again. You never know. But anyway, so more recently, after his firing, Joshua Fabia actually decided to publicly bash Diego, claiming that Diego was the abuser instead. And I'll get into why that's ridiculous in a bit, but just to make people understand, if you don't want to go back to those last couple podcasts, let me just lay out the entire timeline for you guys. So, for those, I mean, it's an MMA podcast. You should fucking know who Diego Sanchez is. Shame on you if you don't. But anyway, Diego Sanchez had been with the UFC prior to his firing, probably like, I want to say 15 years, close to that. He's been with probably around 15 years now, close to it. Because he started in 2005, 2006, around there. And yeah, 2021, so around 15, 16 years. And he was the very first Ultimate Fighter winner in the welterweight division, and he's been a mainstay in the UFC for a while. He's fought at welterweight, he's fought at lightweight. He's had absolute barn burners with so many fighters because of how many fights he's had. He's a guy who's always gone to war. He's very well beloved. So that's why I said, if you don't know who Diego Sanchez is, shame on you. You shouldn't call yourself an MMA fan. But if you're a guy or a girl who's trying to get into MMA, well, there you go. But anyway, so, well, actually, before I get into that, you should go check out the Ultimate Fighter Season 1. It's pretty goddamn great. But anyway, moving on. So he had been with the UFC for a while up until this point, and then all of a sudden, I want to say when it came after his Mickey Gall fight, when he TKO'd Mickey Gall, Joshua Fabia came into play, and it wasn't exactly a, you know, well, let's put it this way. We didn't know exactly what to think at first when Diego hired this Joshua Fabia, because he had been with this other camp, Jackson Wink, almost said Joshua Wink, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? Jackson Wink MMA, which is a very well-renowned MMA gym and a very well-renowned camp. Their biggest person that they have in their roster, obviously they have Holly Holm, who is the former bantamweight champ, the one who knocked out Ronda Rousey. But also they have John Jones. They're very well known for having John Jones in their corner and helping him to become the youngest UFC champion and becoming one of the most dominant champions in UFC history and the most dominant light heavyweight champion in UFC history. He was the youngest champ in UFC history at 23. So that's just kind of a little bit of a preview of what, of how well Jackson Wink MMA is of a camp, like how well of a gym and a camp they are. Now, they have kind of fallen off a bit with some of their other fighters, but they have a very vast array of elite fighters, and some of them even becoming champions, obviously, with John Jones. So, around, I want to say, 2019, after his Mickey Gall fight, he left Jackson Wink MMA and kind of went on his own. And this is when he hired Joshua Fabia. This was before his, I want to say, his UFC 239 fight. I think he was fighting Chiesa. And during that fight, he was getting completely dominated, outstruck, and then just completely wrestled to the ground. Because if you guys didn't know, I mean, you guys should. Chiesa is an absolute elite grappler on the ground. I wouldn't say the best submission artist, but his ground game is very dominating. His takedowns are like almost Khabib level. He's very dangerous, to say the least. Michael Chiesa is up there in the top welterweights. But he got completely dominated by Michael Chiesa, and in between rounds, his corner just wasn't giving him the best advice. It was really just Joshua Fabia, and he was just legitimately just sitting there telling him he was doing a fine job. He just needed to move a bit more. He wasn't really telling him where he needed to improve, just completely lying to Diego's face throughout the entire fight. And yeah, Diego got completely dominated. So people were kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, why is he saying these things? Like, Diego's not doing good in the rounds at all. He's being dominated completely. But, we didn't think anything of it when it happened. And then move on to his next fight between him and Michel Pereira. And that one's a very controversial one for MMA fans because, well, the finish ended up being a win for Diego, but it probably shouldn't have been. And if it wasn't Diego so far deep with his balls so deep in Fabia's purse, I guess he probably wouldn't have taken it this way. But he ended up beating Michel Pereira via DQ, and things started to get a little bit more weirder leading up to that because during the pre-fight like weigh-ins and like the training, the fucking pre-fight training bullshit, the open workouts and stuff, he was getting Diego to kind of like meditate and do this like breathe in, breathe out type bullshit and just really dumb shit where he was kind of like getting Diego to like lift him and do dumb stuff. And also leading up to this fight, there was also rumors of him in his camp with Diego and other much lesser known fighters where I don't know what exactly it was, what he was training, if he was training like how to evade or something, but he would chase them around the cage with a knife. And that is just so unorthodox and ridiculous, even for me. It's so unhinged. But anyway, so in the fight, yet again, he was giving Diego terrible advice in between rounds. Michel Pereira just completely battering Diego. And then it got to the third round where Diego got hit with an illegal knee because Michel Pereira was in his groove and Diego was considered a down opponent. And it hit Diego, but Diego didn't look too hurt. But it looked like Joshua Fabia was kind of giving him advice when he was like trying to determine whether he should call off the fight or not, when the doctor was kind of coming in to check and see if he could continue. And Diego took it. Diego took the advice of Joshua Fabia to take the DQ win, and it didn't go over well with fans. So nobody liked Joshua Fabia at this point. We had rumors of him first of all, in the Chiesa fight, we had him being an idiot and giving him absolutely terrible advice and just being a yes man. And then leading up to the Michel Pereira fight, we had him doing that whole meditation, breathe in, breathe out, and then lift me like a helicopter bullshit. And then we had rumors of him chasing fighters around the cage with knives. And then after that fight, we had him telling Diego to take a DQ win and parade around like he had won the fight dominantly, pretty much. So we didn't really like Joshua Fabia to begin with, leading up to this Jake Matthews, which is where the actual whole story with what happened to Diego in the UFC begins. So, leading up to his fight with Jake Matthews, which he got completely fucking dominated yet again, they were at the fighter meetings in Abu Dhabi, and he wasn't even, like, he was there, but he was just standing there silent while the entire time Joshua Fabia was bitching and complaining to the broadcast team who was supposed to be asking Diego questions. He was just asking them questions on why they don't portray him in the best light, or why they don't try to help him get portrayed in the best light, and why they help the MMA Twitter community or the MMA community like portray him as this terrible coach. But it's not the broadcast team that's doing it, and the broadcast team even admits that. You know the whole story. It literally is just 2 4 to 5 minute videos of Joshua Fabia sitting there complaining and bitching and calling out the entire broadcast team for shit they don't do, while Diego sits there quiet with his hands kind of like cusped into each other, and he's just kind of looking over at Fabia the whole time with a look of like, man, if this dude don't shut the fuck up, I'm gonna kill him, but I can't because he's my coach type of look. And it's very heartbreaking to see from Diego, because he's been such a well-beloved fighter, and then with such a quick, like, snap of the fingers, man, he just ruined his legacy, and all because of the coach that he chose. But anyway, after that, the whole story. That video got leaked. I don't know who leaked it. All I know is Stephen Bonner recorded it, acting like he had some sort of evidence, but somebody leaked it. And then after that, Joshua Fabia leaked a phone call with Hunter Campbell, the UFC's legal rep, where they were talking about Diego's medical records. And honestly, the UFC lawyer stated you really shouldn't be taking out medical records of all of Diego's fights unless there's something that has happened to him during training and there's something we need to be worried about. And that was apparently the smoking gun that Fabia had, and it just was this big whole thing. And it all, like everybody knows, it escalated to Diego getting cut from the UFC, and then Fabia making this big deal about how the UFC is shitty, and then like 2 weeks down the line, Diego cut him, and that brings us to this here. So, like I said, we got some ridiculous accusations. That was a long timeline to cover. That took me probably like 10 minutes to cover, more than 10 minutes to cover. It was a lot to get through, but Fabia has quite the timeline behind him in such a short amount of time. That was only 2 years, may I add. I literally just named 2 years of fights, and they were just 3 fights. That's it. That's all. 4 if you want to count the Donald Cerrone one that never happened, but 3 fights. That's all. Anyway, so after his firing, he has come out and accused Diego Sanchez of manipulation and abuse, claiming that he was in fact the abuser and that Fabia was the victim. And, you know, this is a typical tactic for an abuser to try and make themselves out to be good. If it wasn't a good relationship to begin with, the abuser will try to make it out as it was both of their faults and it was just naturally a toxic relationship, which could very well be true, but there's just way too much evidence to believe that Diego was the toxic one and Joshua Fabia was the victim, while there was way more evidence out there to show that Fabia was indeed the abuser and fucking Diego was the poor victim. And it's very clear because Diego hasn't mentally been there for a long while, and it's just been very clear that Fabia was taking advantage of a mentally ill person. And that's just not cool, man. Like, that gives me a very sour taste in my mouth. He's not there mentally. He probably should have retired a couple fights ago. And I was really excited for this Cerrone fight because this was supposed to be a farewell fight for both guys. So hopefully with Diego out of Fabia's grasp, maybe he can get back into the UFC for a 1 fight stint against Cerrone for his farewell fight and then retire because he's made enough money. He's done his shit, you know. I don't want to see him tarnish his legacy anymore. He just needs one more farewell fight, and that Cerrone fight would have been a perfect farewell fight for him. But anyway, yeah, fucking Joshua Fabia is claiming that Diego's an abuser when in fact Fabia is the abuser. And I can't believe it. Like, I can't seem to believe that that Fabia is the victim here. I cannot believe that. So, I mean, maybe I'm a bad person for not believing that, but I just can't seem to believe that Fabia, the man who would literally take advantage of a delusional Diego, take his money, and absolutely tarnish his legacy for the sake of his own popularity. Yeah, for some reason I have a hard time believing that man was the victim. I have a very hard time believing that the man who used a delusional punch-drunk Diego for his own personal gain is the victim. Sorry, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, that's it for the Joshua Fabia situation. I wanted to quickly talk about that because my fucking lord, man, honestly, when I saw that Diego was being accused of abuse by Fabia, I was seeing red. I was seeing red. I got so mad, and that was why I felt like I needed to do an episode this week because this specific topic, I was like, okay, I need to talk about this at some point, but I don't want to do a mini because the mini is more so for other topics, not MMA related topics. And, you know, there was a little bit of MMA that happened this week, so I was like, fuck it, I'll talk about the smaller cards. I never really do that much anymore, and I can talk about this. But yeah, when I saw this allegation of abuse, I was absolutely pissed. I was so upset. But anyway, one more thing of news before I get into the Cage Fury FC 96 and 97 co-main and main event, and then the whole life update. Gamebred, Masvidal, he opened up his own MMA promotion. Not only MMA, but bare knuckle MMA. So it's MMA, all the sanctioned MMA rules, without the 4-ounce gloves. You're not wearing gloves anymore. So it's like bare knuckle FC, but not boxing rules. And to start things off, we have a very interesting main event between Jason Knight, who is the current bare knuckle FC champ, I believe, for what I want to say is like lightweight or whatever, featherweight, whatever their class is. And I don't know what's going on with his contract. We didn't hear anything about it, but he's been signed to Gamebred Fighting Championship, Masvidal's promotion, in the main event against an absolute ridiculous veteran in the MMA game, a man who's changed his nickname because of the amount of dumb felonies he has on his arrest warrant, Charles Crazy Horse, also known as Felony Bennett. He's going up against Jason Knight in what I can only imagine is going to be a absolute sloppy and ridiculous and fun main event for a bare knuckle promotion, and it's going to be barbaric. I can't wait for it, and that is supposedly happening, I want to say June 18th I saw, so that's going to be very interesting, but I can't wait for that to happen. I'm actually so excited for it, and that's pretty big signing for Gamebred's promotion, honestly. Like, not a lot of, regular people are going to know who those guys are, but for the demographic that Gamebred wants to get into it before it gets popular, yeah, that's going to get MMA viewers' eyes on the pay-per-view or wherever you want to do this, wherever, like if you stream it free on YouTube or wherever, it's going to get eyes on the promotion with that main event because it's an interesting main event. We've got one veteran who claims he knocked out Wanderlei Silva and has gotten into so many crazy fucking things in his entire career against Jason Knight, who's just a UFC vet who's always been known as gritty and is the most current bare knuckle FC champion. So that's pretty fucking interesting. And when I saw that last night, I was pretty excited when I saw that. But not only that, we have one more fight announcement, one that I'm actually extremely excited about. And I want to say it's going to be July 17th, something like that. But we have a main event, and it is probably the most interesting main event that I've seen in the UFC so far. We have Yair Rodriguez finally returning after like 500 years of being missing from USADA, going up against Max Holloway. So Holloway's not getting a title shot. I mean, he shouldn't. He's had to, and he lost both. He needs to fight another fight and earn that title shot. But this is the best way because Yair Rodriguez is on a tear where he's getting close to a title shot, and he's an incredibly dynamic striker with knockout power. And Holloway's just the former champion. It'd be a good win on Yair's resume. And if Holloway batters Yair, it puts a stop to this train and puts Max back in the number one contention spot for the next title shot after the whole new Ultimate Fighter season happens. So I'm excited for that. That's supposed to be happening, I believe, July 17th, and it's obviously going to be a fight night main event, but that is going to be an incredible fight. I'm expecting Calvin Kattar vibes all over again, where Max just absolutely brutally beats Yair. Well, Yair tries to get his kicks going this time, though, and I'm just expecting a fun fight from both guys, so that's going to be a great fight. But anyway, that's it for the fight announcements and everything to begin with. Let's get in to CFF 96 and 97. 96, before we get into it, was a little interesting, and I'll talk about it in a bit why. But 97, the main event, my goal is to get this person on the podcast to talk about their rise to where they are now and how quick it was and how dominant they are. Really, it's just from the showing that I saw last night, I was so interested in seeing this person in the UFC or in Bellator, one of the bigger promotions, definitely. But anyway, we'll get into all of that in a bit. All right, so this weekend, Cage Fury had a doubleheader, kind of like when Cage Warriors does. They had their 96th and 97th show, which was headlined by their heavyweight championship and the strawweight championships, respectively. So we'll just start off with CFFC 96 just to kind of get things going, where the co-main event had a 3-0 undefeated prospect who's had all of his fights in Cage Fury with nothing but finishes in all three of the fights against a man who all three of his fights have gone in Ohio Combat League, I believe, and he is 2-1, and it was a pretty solid co-main event, to say the least. Didn't really interest me that much. It was a close one where the judges saw it two ways, 29-28, where one judge saw it 30-27 for Eddie Torres. So he continues his winning streak, going 4-0 after that, going 4-0 in CFFC as well, so getting closer to a title shot in CFFC, no doubt. But what I wanted to talk about for CFFC 96 was the main event. The reason why I want to talk about the main event is because it was slated to actually be an incredible fight between two prospects that have wins over some pretty decent, well, not wins, but has stood across the cage against some pretty solid competition. You know, people like Magalis and, you know, Tanner Bosner and Houston Alexander, people like those, you know, veterans in the game. So this was supposed to headline their CFFC 96 card. And you might be noticing that I'm saying supposed to. This was supposed to happen on Friday. Well, unfortunately, right as the co-main event finished up, moments before the main event was supposed to happen, moments before they were slated to walk out, I believe it was Rakeem Cleveland actually had to pull from the fight due to an illness. And he was going to continue on because he felt better by the time the main event happened. But the medical staff refused to let the fight happen, and CFFC was hopefully going to make the heavyweight fight happen the next night at CFFC 97. But it didn't happen at CFFC 97, unfortunately, so that's probably going to be slated for their 98 or 99 card, somewhere around there. It's going to have to happen soon, but it was unfortunate for Rakeem Cleveland. Just, I'm assuming it might have been like some nerves and that made him throw up, and the medical staff just wanted to play it safe, which I don't blame them for wanting to play it safe, honestly. But anyway, that being said, I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see two heavyweights fucking bang it out. It's always guaranteed knockouts or something between people like that. But going on to CFF 97, though, the co-main event was pretty interesting between two undefeated prospects, Jose Perez and Jalen Alston. And man, was it fun. It was quick and it was fun. It lasted one round, a little over 3 minutes, but the entire fight was so fun where it started out both guys kind of coming out aggressive with their kickboxing. Alston more so throwing the kicks than, Jose Perez was. And Perez was just coming out with his boxing, trying to keep his distance and trying to find his range. And Alston came flurrying in and dropped Perez with like a nice left hand that just dropped him on his ass. And Perez kind of fell to the mat while Alston rushed him and started landing some heavy punches that I honestly thought it was going to finish Jose Perez, but he adjusted and started, throwing up for an armbar and just trapping that arm. He didn't get the armbar, but he definitely stopped Alston's assault and helped himself recover, and he just wrapped up Alston really quick, and it turned into a grappling affair very fast, where Alston did a very good job at controlling the top, but Jose Perez was just the better grappler, obviously, scrambling on the ground and eventually getting to Alston's back, where he just wrapped himself around Alston, got the rear naked the first time around, and we thought it was over. Alston survived, though, popped his head out, scrambled some more, and then it turned into Alston trying to go for a guillotine, only for it to land back on the ground again, and Alston getting his back taken, where Jose Perez landed the rear naked a lot deeper this time. You could see he was torquing the body and twisting it slightly, and you could see his arm was deep under the chin. There was no way that Alston was going to survive unless he was already slippery and he managed to slip out in some sort of fucking miracle. But there was no way that Alston was going to survive that, and he got stuck in a very deep rear naked. So it was a very fun fight, even for only 3 minutes. So it was really enjoyable, and I really enjoyed that co-main event. Congratulations to Jose Perez, another person I'd actually love to get on the podcast. But anyway, let's get into CFF 97's main event, which was the strawweight title, the women's strawweight title. And I just want to talk about these two. So first of all, I'll talk about the challenger, Hillary Rose. She's been on a complete tear in CFF scene. She's a Lausanne MMA member. So she's been trained by a very celebrated grappling artist in Joe Lauzon. And, you know, he does have some heavy fucking hands too, so he probably helps with her striking as well. Trained by somebody as veteran-like as Lauzon, pretty big to have in your corner. But anyway, so Hillary Rose came into this fight absolutely on a streak, and her most recent fight, she finished her opponent by leg kicks, where she pretty much wobbled her opponent with leg kicks, landed another leg kick to drop her, and then whilst her opponent was on the ground, just started beating her with more leg kicks. Didn't get on top of her, just stayed on her feet and started wailing with more leg kicks, where her opponent couldn't do anything but just take them. And the ref stepped in, finished the fight. And Elise Reed, the champion, who's only 3-0 going into this fight, 3-0 for being a pro MMA champion. Very, very surprising, considering only her second pro MMA fight, she became a strawweight champion. So that's pretty big. In every single fight she's fought, she's been the underdog. Even her first title defense, where she faced a very powerful striker and wrestler and completely won that fight by a unanimous decision, I believe. And this one, she was going up against a powerful striker, but yet again, Elise Reed coming in as the underdog. And these two were just very polarizing fighters on the main event, because both could possibly be great mainstays in the UFC strawweight division, or even go up to flyweight in Bellator or something. But anyway, these two girls brought it from the very fucking beginning. My God, they came out swinging. Hillary Rose coming out with those heavy leg kicks, heavy punches, and Elise Reed answering back with heavy punches, not straying away from them, eating every shot like a Terminator too. Like, can't forget that. She's eating leg kicks, body shots, punches, all the while answering with her own right hands and left hands and her own body kicks. It was just nasty. Elise Reed looked really good, but so did Hillary Rose, and then eventually it got to the ground, where, surprisingly enough, it started off as Elise Reed's game on the ground, but Hillary Rose got a dominating position on the ground and started threatening some chokes and stuff, and that didn't last, because Elise Reed just stayed calm, scrambled, and then started getting dominant positions from the bottom, constantly threatening arm bars and chokes. It started off with, I believe, Hillary Rose trying to go for an arm triangle, and then it went all the way from that to Elise Reed scrambling from the bottom, going for an arm bar, and then an omoplata, and then an inverted triangle. It was just complete, like, craziness from both sides. It was just scramble after scramble after scramble, and then with seconds left on the clock, Elise Reed finishes the round strong by ending the round on top, landing vicious punches that just looked like they had Hillary Rose in trouble, but they didn't. Fortunately enough, the bell rang, and second round starts. Same thing. They both come out swinging. They're not going for their takedowns at that much. They're actually going strike for strike, answering each other with strikes. And as they're coming in, as Hillary Rose is coming in, I believe it was a left uppercut that landed that dropped Hillary Rose, and it set up what initially ended up being the finish for Elise Reed, but it was nothing but ground game for the rest of the round, where Elise Reed threatened submissions, constantly just battered her with elbows and punches, and with absolutely 3 seconds on the clock left, Elise Reed was landing elbows and punches, elbows, punches, and Hillary Rose just couldn't do anything. She was taking so many punches. She was curled up in a ball taking these punches, not defending herself properly. And Keith Peterson steps in and waves off the fight. Elise Reed winning the fight by TKO with 3 seconds left in the second round, improving her record by 4-0, putting a second title defense on her record at only 4-0. Very, very polarizing, incredible to see. I can't wait to see how well she does against people in the UFC or in Bellator, or even if she manages to go over to Asia for some reason and fights for one. I'm very interested to see how well she'll do. But that's another person other than Jose Perez I'd love to get on this podcast. I want to talk to her because, like I said, it must be so pressuring, I guess. It must be so pressuring to become a world champion in an organization at only 2-0, defend your title as an underdog at 3-0, and then yet again, after defending your title, coming in as an underdog and finishing that opponent via TKO, making it look dominant after the second round, or in the second round, and making your record 4-0. It's just gotta be quite the run, quite the story to tell. And she's only 28 years old. Obviously, she's, older than most, but she's only 28 years old. She's probably in the prime of where she is right now. She's probably been training for a long time as well. So, she's got that perfect skill set to be in MMA right now, in pro MMA, and she's not young enough to be dumb and, over herself, where she's just constantly fucking, like, full of herself, like, oh yeah, I'm the best ever, I'm the queen of mixed martial arts, I'm the future of MMA. Valerie Loretta. But anyway, it was just incredible to see that showing by Elise Reed, where it started off a little struggling for her, where she was eating some shots and then on the ground she was having a little bit of trouble, but then she quickly got her footing on the ground, and then on the feet got her footing as well, where she dropped Hillary Rose and then finished it on the ground where she knew her strength was. So it was a great showing by her all around. Two great events by CFFC, where I just really enjoyed watching the, lesser contests that they have for us. Honestly, even though they're pro MMA bouts and they're a pro MMA organization, every time I watch these events, whether it be LFA or Fury FC, or I'm sorry, Cage Fury FC or Bellator, I have this feeling of amateur MMA where I'm watching it at a fucking state fair or something. And I don't know why, but I don't know, it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I may very well be the only MMA fan that enjoys that feeling, but I really just enjoy the fact that they feel amateur, but there's some guys with like an 11-6 record on the main event or something like that, but they still feel amateur enough where it's like I'm watching this at a state fair with like 100 other people in attendance who are drunk as fuck. It's a great feeling. I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's just a great feeling. But anyway, that's it for CFFC 96 and 97. It was a great doubleheader for both of them. Unfortunate for that heavyweight main event, though. I was excited to see that main event, and I'm sure, after Rakeem Cleveland was feeling better, he really wanted to get back in there, and, good on the medical staff for not taking any risks, but, I can't help but feel disappointed for Rakeem Cleveland. But anyway, that's it for CFFC and their two events that happened this week. One also happened, but it was just a Muay Thai main event that ended in a first-round knockout. Not much for combat sports, essentially just more other sports like hockey and basketball and all that. But anyway, we'll not talk about that because we're an MMA podcast. To end things off, let's just kind of give an update on how my life is going, because I did say in the last podcast that even though podcasts are kind of more infrequent now that they ever been or whatever, I can't talk today. I'm literally having a stroke as I talk. But they've been pretty infrequent. They're going to be more infrequent, possibly. I'm going to try to get episodes like this out if I can find anything worthwhile to talk to that I can cover 30 to 45 minutes, or a little bit more than that. But they're going to be a little bit more infrequent than they already are, because I'm going to be working a lot more, focusing on saving up. I'm moving down to a completely different city where I'm going to get more internet. Probably streams are going to be coming. I'm going to be trying for more podcasts as well, because I'll have my own office. Plus, I'll have better internet to kind of, upload those much faster and not have to worry about taking like half a day off to upload the fucking audio file, which is absolutely ridiculous. I swear to God, my internet is absolute AIDS, but that's besides the point. As you guys know, I'm engaged and, I'm moving in with her, so we are trying to kind of get things together right now, but with COVID and everything, the wedding's probably not going to be for like a year or so. But those are just kind of like the big updates going on in my life, and I'm going to try to keep the podcast going, but beyond that, when I move in with my fiance, there might also be another podcast going on where it's going to be me and her talking about pop culture bullshit and anime, video games, whatever, and possibly a Let's Play channel to, add on to that as well. But anyway, that's kind of what's going on in my life, and that's kind of the explanation on why podcasts might be a little bit more infrequent than they already are now, because I'll be actually super busy with some stuff, instead of just little tiny busy things that have kept me from uploading podcasts. This time it'll be a legitimate reason, not just stupid little things that are more so because I'm an idiot and a scatterbrained dumbass. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your work week. I hope you guys enjoy the UFC card coming up, which is Augusto Sakai versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, coming up this Saturday, actually. I would get into some of the fights, and, I might just get into them later on in the week. I might do a, predictions podcast or something, maybe. But that's going to happen Saturday, and I believe Bellator is also happening Saturday. Bellator 260, I believe, is happening the same week. So we've got quite a bit for MMA happening, as well as I believe One Championship probably has another thing going on, as well as PFL. So we'll be looking into that, but there's going to be a lot of MMA going on next week. And then the week after that, we've got UFC 263, which is obviously Izzy versus Vettori 2 and Figgy versus Moreno 2, two rematches that are going to be absolute barn burners, especially that co-main event, considering how their first fight went. So anyway, we've got 2 big weeks of MMA upon us, and I'm excited for it. I am here for it, and I'm going to try my goddamn best to get podcasts out for both of those weeks, because like I said, I'm excited for this week and next week, and I'm all for it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy your work week. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend after that. I hope you guys enjoy the fights next week. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.